Welcome to Technology Adoption and Learning. My name is James Creech from the Learning Company. Today we're going to be talking about adopting new technologies in the learning environment and how that relates to Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory that came out in 1962. We're also going to be relating that theory to Christ as a model. The first thing we need to do is understand the five parts to that theory of Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory. The first three are what we call our early adopters, which includes the innovators at 2.5%, the early adopters at 13.5%, and the early majority. That makes up 50%. You can see on the graph on your left. The later adopters, which includes the late majority and the laggards, make up that last 50% for the adoption theory. The early adopters, those innovators, those are going to be that first 2.5% that we talked about. These are going to be the folks that are willing to take a lot of risk. They have the financial means to take the risk. These are going to be those who are always wanting to be on the cutting edge, whether or not the technology works or fails, it doesn't matter to them. They have to be on that cutting edge. You're going to see these folks have the financial means. These could be departments and so forth that have a lot of money to go out and take the risk. The innovators, the risk reward can be a huge dividends for them because they are the latest and greatest. And they'll be the ones that tend to, if we look at things like the cell phone market and do a little comparison there, these are when a new technology comes out, the latest and greatest phone, these are going to be the ones that are pre-buying it, that are trying to get it early, that want the beta copy of it if they can get that before the actual release of the real technology. They're willing to, give the feedback, and they're willing to risk that they may have to have upgrade cycles and that they may have to go through some of those painful things but for them, the risk in having the rewards of that is too great for them. The next part that we'll look at is the early adopters. And now the early adopters, these are going to be your folks that still have the financial means in order to be that early adoption, but they are also going to be the ones that are still looking for some great rewards through it. So this is that 13.5%. So these are still going to be the ones there as soon as a product comes out of beta, they're going to be the ones that are going to be willing to invest in the product. They can also have the financial means that if the product fails, it's not going to be devastating to them, that they are willing to go for that reward. Again, if we look at the cell phone model, these are going to be your ones that are willing to be there on day one when the product launches. They're going to be lined up, ready to take on that new product and those new innovations. These are going to be, if we have a new online technology, this will be departments with a lot of money that maybe they are looking at trying to attract new students because I'm willing to go out and take the risk if it's a new online technology in order to attract those students to get them there. The next is going to be your early majority. Now, these are that group that they're not as willing to take the risk. They have the financial means, but they're not willing to risk that financial means because it would actually hurt their bottom line for them to actually take on a new product and it does not work. It fails. They are still wanting the reward of adopting early, but they want to make sure that the bugs are worked out of the system first. So this would be if you were adopting maybe a new LMS system. These would be the ones that would want other departments to probably test it first to make sure that the bugs are worked out. They're willing to move to it, but not until they know that the system's going to work. So if we look at and compare like the cell phone model again, This is going to be those that are willing to wait a couple weeks in order to go out and buy that new phone. They want to make sure that the software there's no upgrades needed. They want to get the feedback from others, from those early adopters and innovators, that the new technology is worth their adoption, and then they're willing to take that risk there. We look at the later adopters. It makes up two categories: the late majority and the laggards. Now, the late majority, they don't have the financial means in order to take risk. They are the ones that want to adopt proven technologies, that adopt technologies that have been around. So if you're looking at like a new LMS system, they want to know that they're going to use what works. So they're going to use, after all the other departments have come along, they still, everybody still wants some sort of reward out of it. But in this particular case, the late majority are not going to seek the big rewards from taking any kind of risk, because they can't afford for the technology to fail. They need something that they know works, that is proven. All the bugs are worked out of it. They don't want to spend time in that early adoption phase working on any of those risks. And then the last part of the laggards, this is that last 16%. These are the folks, if we go back to the cell phone model, these are the ones that are going to only adopt something because they have to. Maybe it's because technology that they were using previously has been discontinued. To me, this is also if a group is, they're being forced to move from one LMS to another because they have to, or they even being forced to adopt online technologies. Maybe this is your traditional classroom environment. Maybe it's a teacher or professor that prefers in-classroom technology and just does not want to move to something that's newer. They're not willing to take any kind of risk in those moves. They want to know that everything is proven and that they can be able to move to this. When we look at Christ as a model for Roger's theory, the first part that comes to mind when we look at our innovators is a lot of folks would assume maybe the Peter or the disciples would be the innovators, but I actually look at Mary as the model for the ultimate innovator. She was willing to give birth to Christ, to bring him into this world for the forgiveness of our sins. So I think Mary is actually the original innovator. I can't think of anybody else that would be more innovating than her. And then when we look at our early adopters, that's where I see Peter and the disciples as those early adopters. They were willing to drop everything to follow Christ. They were willing to take that risk, and look for that great reward of becoming the early church on that. And then the next, the early majority, for me, that's going to be the crowds that followed Christ. They were not only the crowds that followed him, but the crowds that then, after Christ died, the ones that followed the disciples afterwards. This was that early church. They were willing to kind of drop everything. They were looking for hope, and they were looking for forgiveness. The late majority, for me, that is today's Christians. That is us. That is today's church. We've come along. Of course, Christ was on this earth many, many years ago, but we've come along afterwards. We've adopted, only after hundreds and hundreds of years that came by that the church really grew. That is us, and we are that late majority. The laggards, for me, those are the folks that are still out there, that are still seeking the truth, that are maybe have other religious beliefs other than Christ as a model, that maybe they don't have any religious beliefs and are still looking for something. Those are the laggards. Those are the ones that still have not adopted on that. So I want to thank you today. Here's some references that were used for this presentation, and look forward to more recordings in the future. Thank you.